Hello, everybody. In case you haven't heard, I am Sniffly because it is in addition to hush you. Sorry, dogs. In addition to being cold, flu, and corona season, it is also allergy season, and I have horrific spring allergies. I also have annoying dogs. Hush! You may not eat the cats. No, lay down. They're bad. I might end up pausing this here in a hot second to let them outside because I cannot with their loud barking, and Newfoundlands are exceptionally loud when they bark. I do have allergies, so I sound horrible and I look very pretty today. Very pretty. And I'm blowing my nose a lot. So no, I don't have corona. Totally good. But pollen does hate me. So I'm going to sound like this for at least the next 2 weeks, if not slightly longer, until trees stop doing what they're doing, because trees are mean. We left off yesterday on Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry after the Logan children, good morning, Matthew, got their vengeance against the school bus driver for the white children who go to Jefferson Davis School. And they did it in a fantastic way, I think. Digging that giant ditch across the road that then filled with water that the bus crashes into. And now those other children have to walk just like the Logan children do, back and forth to school through the rain, getting just as muddy. It's a sweet vengeance. And it seems like they've gotten away with it because who would possibly suspect them, right? Well, we're going to finish chapter 3 today, starting on page 57, about halfway down, if you've got one of my old battered copies and you're reading along with. If you're not reading along and just want to hear the story, just listen in. It's all good. Shh. Hey, I'm on the thing, so vamos. Go away.
Vamos.
Adios.
Adios.
Bye. Go upstairs. I'm trying to read.
I want to watch you.
Then sit and watch with your mouth closed. You don't watch with your mouth. You watch with your eyeballs. And don't sit on my tissues because I need those. Mommy stuffy. Youngest, again. Told you this was going to happen almost every time I try to do this. All right. So we're going to see what happens next. I'm excited. Remember, you guys have no work to do. I want to make this abundantly clear to everybody before I start reading again. You have no work through the 30th at all. So you do not have to listen in on the videos. You do not have to do any packet work. If you have younger siblings in other grades, there is no work right now. I'm just doing these videos because I like to read to kids and I love these stories and wanted to share them with you, but you are not obligated in any way to do this. And the school district wants to make it abundantly clear that you have no work to do. Please have your parents check the school district's website for updates, announcements, every important thing you need to know about school. None of that is ever going to come from any of your teachers, self included. That comes directly from the district. Caveat. Cool. Back to the reading because I want to do the reading now. All right. Here we go. Later that evening, the boys and I sat at the study table in Mama and Papa's room, attempting to concentrate on our lessons. But none of us could succeed for more than a few minutes without letting out a triumphant giggle. More than once, Mama scolded us, telling us to get down to business. Each time she did, we set our faces into looks of great seriousness, resolved that we would be adult about the matter and not gloat in our hour of victory. Yet just one glance at each other, and we were lost, slumping on the table in helpless, contagious laughter. All right, Mama said finally. I don't know what's going on here, but I suppose I better do something about it or you'll never get any work done. It occurred to us that Mama might be preparing to whip us, and we shot each other warning glances. But even that thought couldn't dampen our laughter, now uncontrollable, welling up from the pits of our stomachs and forcing streams of laughter tears down our faces. Stacy, holding his sides, turned to the wall in an attempt to bring himself under control. Little man put his head under the table, but Christopher John and I just doubled up and fell upon the floor. Mama took my arm and pulled me up. Over here, Cassie, she said, directing me to a chair next to the fireplace and behind Big Ma, who was ironing our clothes for the next day. I peeped around Big Ma's long skirts and saw Mama guiding Stacy to her own desk. Then back she went for the little man and, picking him up bodily, set him in the chair beside her rocker. Christopher John she left alone at the study table. Then she gathered all our study materials and brought them to us with a look that said she would tolerate no more foolishness. With Big Ma before me, I could see nothing else, and I grew serious enough to complete my arithmetic assignment. When that was finished, I lingered before opening my reader, watching Big Ma as she hung up my iron dress, then placed her heavy iron back on the small pile of embers burning in a corner of the fireplace, and picked up a second iron already warmed there. She tested the iron with a tap of her finger and put it back again. While Big Ma waited for the iron to get hot, I could see Mama bending over outspread newspapers, scraping the dried mud off the old field shoes of Papa's, which she wore daily, stuffed with wads of newspaper over her own shoes to protect them from the mud and rain. The little man beside her was deep into his first grade reader, his eyebrows furrowed in concentration. Ever since Mama had brought the reader home, with the offensive inside cover no longer visible, Little Man had accepted the book as a necessary tool for passing the first grade, but he took no pride in it. Looking up, he noticed that Big Ma was now preparing to iron his clothes, and he smiled happily. Then his eyes met mine, and silent laughter creased his face. I muffled a giggle, and Mama looked up. "Cassie, you start again, and I'm sending you to the kitchen to study," she warned. "Yes'm," I said, settling back in my chair and beginning to read. I certainly did not want to go to the kitchen. Now that the fire no longer burned in the stove, it was cold in there. The room grew quiet again, except for the earthly humming of blah, 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 blah. Words are hard. The earthy humming of Big Ma's rich alto voice, the crackle of the hickory fire, and the patter of rain on the roof. Engrossed in a mystery, I was startled when the comfortable sounds were shattered by 3 rapid knocks on the side door. Rising quickly, Mama went to the door and called, "Who is it?" "It's me, ma'am," came a man's gravelly voice. "Joe Avery." Mama opened the door, and Mr. Avery stepped dripping into the room. "Why, Brother Avery," Mama said, "what are you doing out on a night like this? Come on in, take off your coat, and sit by the fire. Stacy, get Mr. Avery a chair." "No," said Mr. Avery, looking rather nervously over his shoulder into the night. "I ain't got but a minute." He stepped far enough into the room so he could close the door and nodded to the rest of us. "Evening, Miss Caroline. How you tonight?" "Oh, I'll do, I reckon," said Big Ma, still ironing. "How's Miss Fanny?" "She's fine," he said, without dwelling on his wife. "Miss Logan, I come to tell you something important. Mr. Morrison here?" Mama stiffened. "David. You've heard something about David." "Oh, no," replied Mr. Avery hastily. "Ain't heard nothing about your husband, ma'am." Mama regarded him quizzically. It's it's them again. They's riding tonight." Mama, her face pale and frightened, glanced back at Big Ma. Big Ma held her iron midair. "Uh, children," Mama said, "I think it's your bedtime." "But, Mama," we chorused in protest, wanting to stay and hear who was riding. "Hush," Mama said sternly. "I said it was time to go to bed. Now go." Groaning loudly enough to voice our displeasure, but not loudly enough to arouse Mama's anger, we stacked our books upon the study table and started toward the boys' room. "Cassie, I said go to bed. That's not your room." "But, Mama, it's cold in there," I pouted. Usually we were allowed to build small fires in the other rooms an hour before bedtime to warm them up. "You'll be warm once you're under the covers. Stacy, take the flashlight with you and light the lantern in your room. Cassie, take the lamp from the desk with you." I went back and got the kerosene lamp, then entered my bedroom, leaving the door slightly ajar. "Close that door, Cassie." Immediately the door was closed. I put the lamp on the dresser, then slyly slid the latch off the outside door and slipped onto the wet front porch. I crossed to the boys' room. Tapping lightly, I whispered, "Hey, let me in." The door creaked open and I darted in. The room was bathed in darkness. "What'd they say?" I asked. "Shh," came the answer. I crept to the door leading into Mama's room and huddled beside the boys. The rain softened upon the roof. "Shake it, dog, it's shaking." And we could hear Mama asking, "But why? Why are they riding? What's happened?" "Don't rightly know," said Mr. Avery, "but y'all knows how they is. Anytime they thinks we stepping out of our place, they feels like they gotta stop us. You know what some of 'em done to the berries." He paused, then went on bitterly, "It don't take but a little of nothing to set them devilish nightmen off." "But something must have happened," Big Ma said. "How you know about it?" "Alls I can tell you, Miss Caroline, is what Fanny heard when she was leaving the Grangers this evening. She'd just finished cleaning up the supper dishes when Mr. Granger come home with Mr. Grimes, you know, the white school bus driver, and 2 other men's." A clap of deafening thunder drowned Mr. Avery's words. Then the rain quickened and the conversation was lost. I grabbed Stacy's arm. "Stacy, they're coming after us." What? Squeaked Christopher John. Hush, Stacy said harshly. And Cassie, let go. That hurts. Stacy, somebody must have seen and told on us, I persisted. No one wants to hear your voice. Hush. That's enough. Dog.
Cheeky doggy chicken.
The cheeky doggy is cheeky. No. Lay down.
The barking dog is barking.
Yes, the barking dog is barking. Stacy, somebody must have seen and told on us, I persisted. No, Stacy replied unconvincingly. It couldn't be. Couldn't be, cried Christopher John in a panic. What do you mean it couldn't be? Stacy, said Little Man excitedly, what do you think they're going to do to us? Are you sitting on my tissue box? Give me this. Goodness. Stacy, said Little Man excitedly, what do you think they're going to do to us? Burn us up? Nothing, Stacy exclaimed, standing up suddenly. Now, why don't y'all go to bed like y'all supposed to? Brief break for blowing of the nose.
Bless you.
I'm not sneezing, I'm just blowing it.
Oh.
Because pollen is hateful.
I have pollen too.
Well, you're allergic to pollen too, and you also have a snuffle here. Blow your nose, please. No, blow your nose. Thank you. We were stunned by his attitude. He sounded like Mama, and I told him so. He collapsed in silence by the door, breathing hard. And although I could not see him, I knew that his face was drawn and that his eyes had taken on a haggard look. I touched his arm lightly. Ain't no call to go blaming yourself, I said. We all done it. But I got us into it, he said listlessly. But we all wanted to do it, I comforted. Not me, denied Christopher John. All I wanted to do was eat my lunch. Shh, hissed Little Man. I could hear him again. I'd better go tell Mr. Morrison, Mr. Avery was saying. He out back? I'll tell him, said Mama. We could hear the side door open and we scrambled up. Cassie, get back to your room quick, Stacy whispered. They'll probably come check on us now. But what do we do? Nothing now, Cassie. Them men probably won't even come near here. You really believe that? Asked Christopher John hopefully. But shouldn't we tell Mama? I asked. No. We can't ever tell nobody, declared Stacy adamantly. Now go on, hurry. Footsteps neared the door. I dashed onto the porch and hastened back to my own room, where I jumped under the bed covers with my clothes still on. Shivering, I pulled the heavy patchwork quilts up to my chin. A few moments later, Big Ma came in, leaving the door to Mama's room open. Knowing that she would be suspicious of such an early surrender to sleep, I sighed softly and, making little sleepy sounds, turned over onto my stomach, careful not to expose my shirt sleeves. Obviously satisfied by my performance, Big Ma tucked the covers more closely around me and smoothed my hair gently. Then she stooped and started fishing for something under our bed. I opened my eyes. Now, what the devil was she looking for down there? While she was searching, I heard Mama approaching and I closed my eyes again. Mama? Stacy, what are you doing up? Let me help. Help with what? With whatever's the matter. Mama was silent a moment, then said softly, Thank you, Stacy, but Big Ma and I can handle it. But Papa told me to help you. And you do, more than you know. But right now, you could help me most by going back to bed. It's school day tomorrow, remember? But Mama, if I need you, I'll call you. I promise. I heard Stacy walk slowly away. Then Mama whispering in the doorway, Cassie asleep? Yeah, honey, Big Ma said. Go on and sit back down. I'll be out in a minute. Then Big Ma stood up and turned down the wick of the kerosene lamp. As she left the room, my eyes popped open again, and I saw her outlined in the doorway, a rifle in her hands. Then she closed the door, and I was left to the darkness. For long minutes I waited, wide awake, wondering what my next move should be. Finally deciding that I should again consult with the boys, I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, but immediately had to swing them back again as Big Ma re-entered the room. She passed the bed and pulled a straight-back chair up to the window. Parting the curtains so that the blackness of the night mixed with the blackness of the room, she sat down without a sound. I heard the door to the boys' room open and close, and I knew that Mama had gone in. I waited for the sound of the door opening again, but it did not come. Soon the chill of the cotton sheets beneath me began to fade, and as Big Ma's presence lulled me into a security I did not really feel, I fell asleep. When I awoke, it was still nightly dark. Big Ma, I called. Big Ma, you there? But there was no reply from the chair by the window. Thinking that Big Ma had fallen asleep, I climbed from the bed and felt my way to her chair. She wasn't there. Outside, an owl hooted into the night, quiet now except for the drip drop of water falling from the roof. I stood transfixed by the chair, afraid to move. Dog! Dog! Layla! Stop that. Stop that. You're making a lot of noise. Goodness.
Scratchy.
Dog also has allergies. Lay down.
No, noisy dog, noisy.
Noisy dog is noisy. It's true. Outside, an owl hooted into the night, quiet now except for the drip drop of water falling from the roof. I stood transfixed by the chair, afraid to move. Then I heard a noise on the porch. I could not control my trembling. Again the noise, this time close to the door, and it occurred to me that it was probably the boys coming to confer with me. No doubt Mama had left them alone, too. Laughing silently at myself, I hurried onto the porch. Stacy, I whispered, Christopher John. There was a sudden movement near the end of the porch, and I headed toward it, feeling along the wall of the house. Little man, hey, y'all, stop fooling around and answer me. I crept precariously near the edge of the high porch, my eyes attempting to penetrate the blackness of the night. Oh, my goodness, hush!
Noisy dog is still noisy.
From below, a scratchy bristliness sprang upon me, and I lost my balance and tumbled with a thud into the muddy flower bed. I lay paralyzed with fear. Then a long, wet tongue licked my face. Jason! Jason, that you? Our hound dog whined his reply, kind of like my hound dog whining her replies.
Noisy dog is still noisy.
Truth. I hugged him, then instantly let him go. Was that you all the time? Look what you've gone and done, I fussed, thinking of the mess I was in with mud all over me. Jason whined again, and I got up. I started to climb back up onto the porch, but froze as a caravan of headlights appeared suddenly in the east, coming fast along the rain-soaked road like cat eyes in the night. Jason whined loudly, growing skittish as the lights approached, and when they slowed and braked before the house, he slunk beneath the porch. I wanted to follow, but I couldn't. My legs would not move. The lead car swung into the muddy driveway, and a shadowy figure outlined by the headlights of the car behind him stepped out. The man walked slowly up the drive. I stopped breathing. The driver of the next car got out, waiting. The first man stopped and stared at the house for several long moments, as if uncertain whether it was the correct destination. Then he shook his head and without a word returned to his car. With a wave of his hand, he sent the other driver back inside, and in less than a minute the lead car had backed into the road, its headlights facing the other cars. Each of the cars used the driveway to turn around, then the caravan sped away as swiftly as it had come, its 7 pairs of rear lights glowing like distant red embers until they were swallowed from view by the Granger forest. Jason began barking now that the danger had passed, but he did not come out. As I reached for the porch to steady myself, there was a sense of quiet movement in the darkness. The moon slid from its dark covers, cloaking the earth in a shadowy white light, and I could see Mr. Morrison clearly, moving silently like a jungle cat from the side of the house to the road, a shotgun in his hand. Feeling sick, I crawled onto the porch and crept trembling toward the door. Once inside the house, I leaned against the latch while waves of sick terror swept over me. Realizing that I must get into bed before Mom or Big Ma came from the other room, bless you, I pulled off my muddy clothes, turning them inside out to wipe the mud from my body, and put on my night clothes. Then I climbed into the softness of the bed. I lay very still for a while, not allowing myself to think. But soon, against my will, the vision of ghostly headlights soaked into my mind, and an uncontrollable trembling racked my body. And it remained until the dawn, when I fell into a restless sleep. And I'm going to stop there at the end of the chapter. Oh my gosh! There's such a great suspense that builds up at the end of that chapter when Cassie wakes up thinking that she's going outside to talk to her brothers, and then she sees the cars coming, and it's the nightmen Mr. Avery was warning about. Now, we nowadays refer to them as the KKK or just the Klan, but at the time, they didn't actually have the name to themselves. They hadn't begun their fraternity, as it were.
What are you doing?
Hush, I'm talking. So they just called themselves the Nightmen. But this is the same group of people that later commit so many atrocities against African Americans in the South and all throughout the country, all the way up through till closer to present day, where they're still committing some of these terrible things that they do, not as widely accepted as it was in the 30s. Because in 1933, when this book takes place, again, this is considered common for this time period and this era and this area of the country. Everyone of African American descent lived in fear of the Nightmen at this point. And it was common practice for them to get in these big caravans right around the countryside, terrorizing houses, showing up, burning crosses in yards, pulling people out of their beds, and committing horrific atrocities against them. So it's interesting to hear Cassie's take on it because she's a child. She's just fourth grade. Shh, not you. So not much younger than y'all are now. Can you imagine how scary that must be? Already living with that fear of oppression every day and having it be so commonplace, and then being woken in the middle of the night thinking you're going to talk to your brothers, and up rides this large group of cars out of the night, and men get out into your driveway and start walking towards your house. I cannot imagine how frightening that must be. I will be back here in about half an hour to read Witch Blackbird Pond, and then again at noon for Pictures of Hollis Woods. Have an awesome rest of your day. See you later. And it has been awesome, guys. And if this child doesn't stop touching my books, I'm going to end her. I swear.